I'm Squeaky, rubber chicken, decades old. I don't read. I just squeaky near humans while they figure things out. Or don't. I've seen the same patterns repeat for years. So now I explain them to you. Let's begin. So there was this one time I ended up at a yoga studio. Some wellness influencer won me in a raffle or something. Doesn't matter. Point is, I spent months propped up against a wall while people twisted themselves into shapes that looked uncomfortable. And this one instructor, she'd always say the same thing. The hardest pose in yoga is corpse pose. Just lying there, doing nothing. And everyone would laugh, because obviously lying down is easy, right? Except they were all terrible at it. Couldn't just lie there for 5 minutes without fidgeting, checking their mental to-do lists, planning what they'd do after class. That's when I realized something about you humans. You've forgotten how to be lazy. And that's a problem, because there's a philosophy to doing nothing. And after decades of watching you all run yourselves into the ground, I think it's time we talked about it. Let me be clear, I'm not talking about scrolling TikTok for 4 hours. That's not being lazy. That's being busy doing nothing, which is somehow worse. Real laziness, the good kind, that's an art form, and you've all lost it. Back in the day, and yeah, I've been around for that long, people at least knew how to sit on a porch and stare at nothing. Now, you can't even wait for an elevator without pulling out your phone. You've turned rest into a productivity hack. Self-care Sunday, strategic downtime. You schedule relaxation like it's a meeting. That's not laziness. That's just more work with a face mask on. Okay, so here's the thing. There's this ancient Chinese philosophy called Wu Wei, and before you click away thinking this is going to be some mystical Eastern wisdom nonsense, stay with me, because this is actually the most practical you'll hear all day. Wu Wei means effortless action, or doing by not doing. Sounds like a contradiction, right? That's because you're thinking about it too hard, which is exactly the problem. Think about it like this. You ever try to remember something and can't, so you give up, and then it pops into your head 5 minutes later? That's Wu Wei. Your brain did the work when you stopped trying so damn hard. You can't force yourself to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more awake you stay. Can't force creativity. Ever sit there staring at a blank page, then get your best idea in the shower? That's because you stopped trying. Can't force a conversation to flow naturally. The moment you start thinking about what to say next, it gets awkward. See the pattern? Sometimes the best thing to do is stop doing. And I've been watching you humans fight this truth for decades. You all think you can force things through sheer willpower. You can't. Some things only happen when you get out of your own way. All right, let's get into the science of why your brain needs you to be lazy sometimes. Task-positive network. This is when you're focused, working, doing stuff. Default mode network. This is when you're spacing out, daydreaming, doing nothing. Here's what they don't tell you in your productivity podcasts. The default mode network is where all the good shit happens. Problem solving? Default mode. Creative insights? Default mode. Processing emotions? Default mode. Making sense of your life? You guessed it. Default mode. But you can't access it if you're constantly doing something. Your brain needs downtime to process. That's not laziness. That's maintenance. I've seen this in every era. The people who figured this out, they went further than the ones who just kept grinding. Here's something they figured out back in the early 1900s during factory studies. After a certain point, working more hours doesn't mean more output. In fact, it means less. Because you get tired, make mistakes, have to redo things. Same applies to your brain work. You can't think harder by thinking longer. At some point, you're just sitting there pretending to work while your brain screams for a break. That yoga instructor was right. The hardest thing to do is nothing, because your brain keeps telling you you should be doing something. But sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is absolutely nothing. Okay, so how do you actually do this? because I know you're all going to try to optimize your laziness, which defeats the purpose, but whatever. Here's what I've learned from decades of observation. 1. Schedule nothing time. I'm serious. Put it in your calendar. Do nothing. 2 to 3 p.m. Sunday. Not relax, not self-care, nothing. No agenda, no phone, just exist. Will it feel weird at first? Yes. Will you want to fill it with something productive? Absolutely. Don't. 2. Single tasking is the new lazy. Stop trying to do 17 things at once. That's not efficiency, that's just chaos with better marketing. Do one thing, then do nothing. Then do another thing. Revolutionary. I know. 3. Embrace boredom. Because boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is your brain's way of saying, hey, I'm ready to process some stuff if you'll just shut up for a second. Waiting in line? Don't grab your phone. Just wait. Sitting on the train? Just sit. Lying in bed before sleep? Just lie there. Let your brain wander. That's where the good stuff happens. 4. Stop justifying rest. You don't need to earn rest. You don't need to make laziness productive. Rest is not a productivity hack. It's just rest. You're a human, not a machine. Machines need downtime for maintenance. You're not even as durable as a machine. The people who are actually good at being lazy, the ones who can truly do nothing without guilt, those are usually the people who get the most done when they need to. Because they're not burned out. They're not running on empty. They actually have energy when it matters. The hustle culture people? I've seen that movie before. Comes around every few decades with a new name, and it always ends the same way. Burnout, regret, wondering where the time went. The ones who figured out how to be strategically lazy, they're the ones who look back and actually remember living their lives. So yeah, I spent months at that yoga studio. And eventually, I watched people get better at corpse pose. Not because they tried harder, but because they stopped trying at all. The instructor was right. The hardest pose is just lying there. Because lying there means accepting that right now, in this moment, there's nothing you need to do. Nowhere you need to be. Nothing you need to optimize. And after decades of sitting on shelves, forgotten in closets, left behind in basements, trust me, I know something about just existing without purpose. It's not the worst thing in the world.